Welcome to the Coach Speak podcast, built for coaches, by coaches, hosted by Jamie Bolton and Dustin Martin. Sponsored by Ray Crowther, providing the nation's best athletic training equipment since 1932. And R4 Football Systems. Accelerate everything by decoding the game.
Hey guys, welcome back to Coach Speak. Got a special episode tonight. It's Dustin Martin here with Jamie Bolton, and we have South Florence's head coach Drew Marlowe on. Got a great episode planned for you. And before we get going, we want to start out with thanking our sponsors, Team Builder and Tsunami Bar Sports.
Yeah, guys, we're excited to have Coach Marlowe on. He's at South Florence. He was at Sumter for 11 years before that as OC, and at South Florence, he's been to the state championship the last 3 years and won 2. So obviously, we're excited to have you on, Coach, and learn from you and pick your brain. We're going to be picking Coach's brain about how to build a culture, how to sustain a winning culture, and I also pick his brain about offense because he's an offensive guy too. And so, Coach, man, it's a pleasure to have you on.
I appreciate you guys having me.
All right, man, let's go ahead and get into it. Tell us a little bit about your football journey and what led you to becoming the head coach at South Florence.
Yeah, so had certainly had you told me any time before I graduated high school that I was going to coach, I would have laughed at you, and so would everyone, who knew me. I grew up, I was the son of a small business owner. My dad owned an automotive store, and, my whole life was really mapped out for me. I was going to go to college and come back and work with him for a little while and then take over his business. And I started working, with my dad when I was going to work with him when I was 10, 11 years old. I kind of ran the shop at a very, very early age, and my dad was really kind of grooming me, to take over his business. And it was not until my last day of high school, I took my last exam and I was going to walk out the building. I just stopped at the my head coach's office, Paul Sarles. And if you're a believer, you'll understand this. If not, you won't. But when knocked on his door, he opened up the door to his office, and it's like the Lord just really opened my eyes to what he had planned for my life. I had my life very well planned out, and really felt like in that moment he said that this is what I want you to do. Panicked a little bit because I'm as type A as they come, and I don't like for my plans to change, but just really felt strongly that I was being called in a different direction. And so came back a couple of days later, talked to my coach, was kind of like, hey, I don't know what to do with this. And he said, well, why don't you stay here and go to USC Sumter, and why don't you coach with us this year? See if you like it. Maybe you just, thought you did and you won't. And from the first day I walked on the field, I knew that this is what I wanted to do, but had never even considered it before then. And then, was fortunate to begin my career at a program like Sumter, really, and started at the very, very bottom, volunteer freshman coach, and was able to work my way all the way up, kind of through everything while I was at Sumter, all the way up, to being the offensive coordinator and assistant head coach. And then in 2019, I was hired December of 2019, started January 2020, and then COVID hit, and made that first year extremely challenging. I tell people all the time, I said, when our first practice, I wrote, on the back of everybody's helmet, put tape and put everybody's name. I didn't know everybody's name yet. I didn't learn everybody's name till halfway through the year, because I think we started practicing like 3 weeks before the season started that year. And it was a tough year, but learned a lot, along the way. I've had a lot of people really invest in me and really take time to teach me and help me grow. And I'm still trying to figure it out too. There's a lot of days I sit in my office and think I have no idea what I'm doing. I just, pray it'll work out. And, I think that's,
I think we can all relate to that, man. I mean,
I think that's how a lot of it is, because everything changes. It's changing so fast. And so that's sort of been my journey to this point.
yeah, I can definitely relate. I took my head job in the same year. So my first head job was going into Cannon in the COVID year. And I know our listeners probably heard this before, but it was like, hey man, you're going to be a head coach, and you take all the stuff that you learned, and it's like, oh yeah, you can't do any of that in the off season. So you got to be able to problem solve and go through that process. And
You got to
but
take
I
it easy,
think
you know.
it's tough, man. It's tough. But yeah, so you talked about people that poured into you. Who are some of the most influential people in your life that you feel like have really built into you and poured into you to create the head coach you are now?
Yeah. Um, off the bat, probably the most important man, other than my father. Okay, the most important man that's ever uh, I've had in my life and impacted me the most and really built in me a foundation was a guy by the name of Jamie Fiddler. He was my um, I actually went to a small private school before I transferred to Sumter High. I went to Wilson Hall. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that before, but small private school. Jamie Fiddler was my first, like head football coach at the high school level, and he was a military guy, flew Apache helicopters, and just very, very disciplined guy. I mean, he used to always say this. I'll never forget it till the day I die. Self-discipline is a regulation of oneself for the sake of improvement, and was really ran our program like the military. I mean, we did some things that are freaking crazy. He'd get fired today. Uh, um, I hated him while I played for him, and the things we had to do, and the level of discipline and attention to detail, and all of those things that he forced us to do. It wasn't until really I left him and went to Sumter High that I realized how important all of those things were, and it's really built a foundation for me. Played for Paul Sorrells. Paul Sorrells really impacted me in a way of how to love kids. Paul loved his players more than any coach I've ever been around. Um, Reggie Kennedy worked for him. Highly organized guy. Learned the importance of being organized and having a plan. And then when I first started coaching, my position coach in high school, his name was Matt Love. He's the offensive line coach now at Burns. He was the first guy that really said, "All right, come with me. I'm going to teach you how to coach." And he did, and he has, and he continues
Mm-hmm.
and really be sort of my guy who I call when I want to bounce something off of him. He's been that for me for I'm going into year, I think 16 or 17, total. And just a very, very uh, important person in my life. And then my last 5 years, I was at Sumter. I worked for Mark Barnes, and he
Uh-huh.
had my career about 15 years, working for him. And he's the guy who really taught me football, who really taught me X's and O's, how to understand um, just everything about, you know, football scheme wise, program wise. And, it was important for me to kind of be under all of those other guys because they really prepared me for the depth of knowledge that he had and that he was, instilling in me. And for 5 years, he really poured a lot into me and really, I keep saying this, I don't know if this is the right word or not, but sort of groomed me for 5 years
For
to be
sure. Yep.
take a head coaching job. Really gave me opportunities to have responsibilities and um, uh, gave me a lot of room to grow. And
Cool.
I would, there is no doubt I would not be here today without, if I had not worked for him. Um,
Yeah.
And
those
those
are
are
the guys I
those are
really,
the best head coaches, the ones that truly allow you to grow, give you your
yeah,
role. Hey man, perfect it. If you need help, come ask me. But I'm gonna let you make it yours. It's yours. And just to comment on what you said earlier, the fact that you were obedient enough to go, I have a plan, because I think me and Jamie both would agree we're pretty type A, and if
Mhm.
it doesn't go the way we plan, it's it's one little period off, and we're freaking out. But it's like, to have that obedience to, I'm getting ready to alter my entire life because I'm feeling it in my spirit to do this, man. That's awesome, coach. But yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard of Coach Barnes. I actually think I emailed him one time about an assistant position that was open when I was graduating college.
Okay.
But I was PE, and we all know how that works. We all
That's
know how
tough.
that works. All right, Coach, we're going to kind of move into our first segment about building a championship program. Obviously, you've had a lot of success on and off the field, and Coach, we want to kind of know when you took over after you were at Sumter for so long, you were there 11 years, you take over a brand new program. What did your vision look like? Like, what was your non-negotiables when you took over where you wanted to take the program? What's your vision look like?
Yeah. To sit here and say that I knew we were going to have the success that we had, wouldn't be totally accurate, but you know, I just knew that wherever I went, I wanted to go to. First of all, when I was looking for a job, right? You want to be a head coach. I knew I wanted to go somewhere that had good athletes, had good football players. That's the most important thing. You're not going to make bad football players good. I think that you know that there's a lot of programs with a lot of good kids, but they're not talented enough, and they're never going to win a state championship. I wanted to go somewhere where I had a chance to win a state championship, and I felt like South Florence had good football players. We were in the same region as them at Sumter for a lot of years. Saw them, really felt like there was a lot of talent. Now I didn't know I was walking into Lenore Sellers,
Right.
but I did after I saw him throw for the first time.
Hey,
But I
neither
did
did
not know
Clemson.
that, when I
Neither
checked
did
this out. I
Clemson
heard
this
they had a
past
pretty
year.
good quarterback. He was just a freshman at the time. So, um, when I walked in, I'm going to be honest with you, I was extremely prepared. I had, right, the little manual that I'd been working on for years and years and years. I had a rule sheet that was 2 pages long. I had goals and standards and, all kinds of neat things and great words and all these things that you dream about and you want to have happen. And I learned quickly that it, you really got to simplify in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish. When you have a lot of things that you say, these are the most important things to me, man, you're gonna run yourself crazy
Yeah.
trying to hold everything to the highest standard, right? There's some things that you need to sort of define, like this is good enough. Okay. These are the 3 or 4 things that I'm not budging on. These things have to be perfect every day, no matter what. You've got to communicate that to your people, to your coaches, and to your players. And then what I think a leadership is setting standards and then holding everyone accountable to them, no matter what. Uh, we talk a lot in our program about we've got standards and we've got expectations. Standards are non-negotiable. No matter what the circumstance is, I don't care. Our first standard is we're always early. All right. So I don't care if there's a car wreck. I don't care if you had a flat tire. I don't care if there's a train. It don't matter. If you're not early, then there are consequences for that. I don't care what. Take out all the excuses. I got sick. I got whatever. We don't. You don't even need to tell me. You're not early. And then we've got expectations, right? You've got certain expectations for the way you want your players to carry themselves and do different things. And so those sometimes are based on circumstance, right? Sometimes circumstances do impact those things. And just having an understanding of expectations and standards. Standards we don't budge on. Standards we're going to die on these hills. And everything else, we want to do it at a high level, but man, when you try to do my biggest problem early was I wanted everything, every aspect of everything to be perfect. I wanted the floor in the locker room to be perfect, and I wanted to run power perfectly, and I wanted to run 4 verticals perfectly. I wanted everything to be perfect. And if it wasn't, I was miserable. And well, for about 2 years, I was miserable until I started learning. All right, we've got to simplify. Not everybody can handle all this, and nobody's going to have nobody should have greater expectations for the program than you. But you've got to also sort of have an understanding of, you know, nobody cares as much as you do either. And so, how do you get people to buy in to what you say is most important? Narrow that down. All right. Have these 3, 4, 5 things that, are standards. And then everything else, let's just coach them through and let's continue to remind them and it's okay. But, um, I think that was important for me early. that I didn't do well, but I learned from and continue every year to go back through and just say, is this really the most important, or should this become more important? And that's kind of what I do January, February.
Yeah.
Really evaluate what do we need to be able to do better, um, what needs to become more of a standard, and what standard can become more of an expectation. Because can't have 10 standards, right?
Right.
Uh,
And that's an important quality to think about too. We're all 3 type A guys here,
sure.
and most coaches are, right? And I
Yeah.
think we sometimes we kind of put things into a box, and if we stick in that box, man, like we can really get hung up on like we got to get it done this way or we got to do this particular thing. And sounds like you, coach, have been able to adapt through your tenure there, and obviously your ability to adapt has led to a lot of buy-in, a lot of those standards, I'm sure, being met. Talk a little bit about how you develop that type of culture, that standard of behavior in the off season.
Yeah, that's the most important thing for me. For me, our culture is built from January, through April in the weight room. Number one, I'm in there every single day. I mean, I might, go to a clinic here or there, or go watch a college practice here or there, but for the most part, I never really worked for a head coach that was in the weight room, particularly during the off season, and I think that is vitally important. If for us, we, sort of our brand, if you will, is we want to be the toughest, most disciplined, physically dominating team in the state. And if that's what you want your identity to be, uh, you you better dump your soul out in that weight room. And I think it's important for it to be very high intensity. Everything we do is fast. Like when they get out of class, they're running to the field house to get dressed. They're running back to the weight room. We're running through our workout. And then when we go, we go. And there are certain things we do in the weight room. I'll be honest with you. My strength coach doesn't like some things sometimes, but we do some things just because they're hard. And I think that there's a need for everybody. I mean, for adults too.
Sure.
But particularly for high school age kids to do things that are insanely hard, uh, so that they know they can do it. Because we want things quickly and comfortably, and that's how we're trying to do it. If we don't get it quickly and comfortably, then we just say, well, we can't have it or we don't want it. So developing and having those standards of we're always early. There's a timer on everything. If you're late, you're going to do 100 up downs. We're not going to talk about it. You're going to do 100 up downs. Just being fanatical
Hmm.
about um, time, transition, and intensity, because I think
Hmm.
you have to teach those things. That's not normal anymore, unfortunately. We want everything, to sort of be leisurely or whatever. So being extremely fanatical during that time about, uh, they got to leave the school building to go down to our field. This is logistically not
Hmm.
good, but it kind of works to, I've used it, we've used it to help train transitions and going quickly. So they've got to go from the school building down to the field house, get dressed, come back to the weight room. You know what I'm saying? And then there's some transitions that kind of used to waste time, but we don't let it waste time anymore. That's our warm up now. Run into the
Right.
field house, come
Yeah.
back. That's warm
Well,
up. Let's get in. Let's go. You know.
you've had like the ability to maybe take a logistical nightmare and put it
Yeah.
into a competitive advantage piece.
Mhm.
So like now we get to train this now.
Mhm.
We're able to use this as a transition point, make it something that we can outwork somebody else on. I love that,
Yep.
and I love the fact. And I'm a strength and conditioning coordinator too, and at our school as well as a football coach. And man, I love putting our kids under a ton amount of stress and pressure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anytime you can do that in the weight room,
Absolutely.
especially in the off season, obviously.
Sure.
But man, we use Tsunami Bar, and Tsunami Bar is one of those. Obviously, they're a sponsor of ours, but man, Tsunami Bar does a tremendous job. Not only just taking athleticism that translate to the field, but man, putting them into these awkward positions that they just can't get with a normal straight bar. And man,
Yeah.
we just put them under so much stress and pressure all the time, especially intentionally. And so when that
Yep.
happens, man, our kids respond in ways they couldn't respond otherwise because of that implement. And shout out
Yep.
to Tsunami Bar, guys. If you're interested in Tsunami Bar at all, man, reach out to Chad Smith. They do a really great job of going and demoing all the items that they have. They don't just have the big speed bars. They have force bars. They have all kinds of bars that you can use. The Man Sonata bar does a great job, and again, not just athleticism that translates to the field, but definitely putting your kids in situations that it's hard and difficult, but they're not going to get hurt. It's like more force, less weight. You can use it for different athletes. But shout out to Tsunami Bar Sports.
Yeah, Coach, and Coach Marlowe, you hit on something that I think is important to highlight. There's a lot of great strength coaches out there. There's a lot of great football coaches out there, and I think there's got to be that bridge and mold between a sport coach and a strength coach. That not every single thing that we do, speaking for football, has to have an extrinsic output to it. Like there's some things that we do for intrinsic value, like for the mental toughness, for the strain. Like I understand this may not make them a better athlete. It may not make them faster, but it's going to build toughness. And football is a sport built on toughness. It's the only sport out there designed where player A has to move player B if you want to be successful. And I love creating athletes, but I've never seen speed stop power coming straight at you. But I've seen strength stop power coming straight at you, and I love that you hit on that point. And as we're on the weight room, also shout out to our sponsor, Team Builder. They do a really great job that make it easy to program, upload all of your athletes, and distribute out all the workouts that are individualized to keep players safe. You can share between other coaches, and man, they're a great product. Free 30-day trial, show notes with the promo code CoachSpeak.
Yeah, Coach, we are just super interested in getting into your journey, especially the last 3 years. I was at Cannon. Our first year, we ended up winning our first conference championship in school history. Second year, we won the state championship, kind of out of nowhere. Nobody was really expecting it. And then, man, going into that year after that, you win it, and it's like, man, there's a lot of expectation here. There's a lot more pressure. There's a lot more. Like I felt worse that next year because of what we had to go and prove again. Like we're not just a fluke, 1 year at post COVID and all this stuff. And like, man, talk to us a little bit about the difference in winning like your first one and then, going back and then going again and winning the second one. Man, that's a big mountain to climb.
It is. You know, I think that sustaining success is significantly harder than sort of just reaching it that first time.
Mm-hmm.
We were kind of this. I mean, we were loaded in 2022, but nobody knew it. Like so, I had a lot of pressure just because, and really, I mean, going into his senior year, nobody was talking about Lenore Sellers. I couldn't figure it out, but um, we truly we were sort of an under the radar team too, and then we go and win it, and everybody is excited. Everything's great. It's South Florence's like first state championship in any male sport. The only thing that ever won them was softball. You know, and I remember walking across the field, but before I even shook Paige's hand at the end of the game, thinking, how are we going to get back? How are we going to I figured if we got back, we'd probably see Northwestern again, and their front was unbelievable, and they were all sophomores. Like, how are we going to block these guys? And so, I don't know, everybody says, to enjoy the moment and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just not really wired that way. I wish I was a little bit more. And as the years have gone on, I've become a little bit more, I guess, enjoy the moment. But I think that it first has to start with the guy who's leading the program. Like there's got to be a switch that happens. And we won the state championship on Saturday. And like we got to school on Monday. And our kids were like, hey, what are we doing today? And I said, you better get your butt down there and get dressed. We're maxing on squat before we go to Christmas break.
We got to go sprint to the weight room.
And like their faces were like, what? And then it was immediately like, oh yeah, like we got to do what we do. And bam. And it just,
Awesome.
We went right into the next off season, and now the pressure and the, anxiety that was built inside of me, like we just wanted, just like, are we going to be a one-hit wonder? Did we only win it because we had little more sellers? Like, what's this going to look like? And then we just kept winning. And, that was something that when I first got to South was really difficult. Like anytime the first thing that went bad, like boom, like, everybody just shut down. Here we go again. We're going to lose. Developing a belief that kind of no matter what, we're going to figure out a way to win is hard to do. But once you kind of get that ball rolling in their heads, it's really good for you. And it was really good to us. And we won 29 in a row. And then we lose, and really we're upset. I mean, we I think the last 2 years in 4A, the wrong team has won it. I think we should have probably won it 2 years ago, and Westside should have probably won it this past year. But you know, um, I think that losing that game, gosh, I mean, just the pain and that group was my first group. They were freshmen when I first got there, so there was a lot of, I guess, sentimental whatever with those guys. Loved those guys. They were the first guys I coached for 4 years, all that kind of stuff, and we were supposed to win it. We were supposed to win 30 in a row, all these things, and then it gets taken from you, and you realize, you're not unstoppable. And then we start this year and we start 1-2, and we get blown out in 2 games, and everybody just thinks, but the pressure's still there for you because you got to keep going, you got to keep doing it. But I think the most important thing through all that, through 3 years, is again standards. Like I think that is so important. No matter what, it's the day before the state championship. It's the day of the state championship. It's the day after. It's March 2nd. Have certain standards that you don't bend on.
Mhm.
And then for me, and this has become more important for me over the last 3 years, is invest in your kids. Like
Mhm.
everything, we are a player driven program. And I was not always like this now. I mean, I was very much about my glory. I was very much about, I want to win so I can be the guy that wins, and I need the players to help me win. And, man, when you start investing in your players and helping them grow and become more mature, better human beings, broaden their horizons a little bit, and get to see them grow and get to see them respond
Mhm.
to what you're investing in them. uh I'm telling you that they're better football players. They're better everything, but
Yep.
they're able to handle all the things that are hard better. And that for me has become, I still love to win now. I mean,
Yeah,
I want to win it
for
again this
sure.
year, but you know, I mean, today, I'm gonna tell you today, I called kind of my 4 leaders in on offense, and I said, look, I ain't going out there with y'all today for conditioning. I want you to get them warmed up. This is what we're doing. I want y'all to do it. And I said, I got stuff that I got to get done. And I acted like I was staying in the field house, but I went out around the corner and watched them, and they didn't know. But I felt today, I was thinking, it's just funny that you asked, like, I was so proud. Like I was no more proud. I'll be no more proud if we are able to find a way to go and win it again this year than I was watching them hold each other accountable. No, that one doesn't count. We're gonna do it again. Watching everybody touch the line. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
we couldn't have done that 3 years ago. But
Mhm.
because I think of what we've invested in them through our character development stuff and all that kind of stuff, I think that for me makes me feel really good about when they leave me. You know what I mean? And so
Absolutely.
I think that's a really, really, really important piece. There's a lot of right ways to lift and to call an offense and call a defense and all that kind of stuff, but
Yep.
you gotta have talented players, and then you gotta have guys that grow and mature and aren't boys.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually, before Jamie left to go to Kings Mountain, he brought me on his staff, and in my opinion, Jamie has always been a great culture guy, someone I've looked up to and leaned on for that. And Jamie had this Venn diagram with 3 circles. And at the top, I remember he pulled it up, it said total program development. And it talked about character, who we are, cognitive, what we know, and then physical, psychomotor, how we execute it, fundamentals. And it's all about that total program development. And can you win games if you don't do all 3? Absolutely. Like you said, if you have the players, you can win. You can win.
Yeah.
But are you going to be able to sustain it when those players leave and the next guys up aren't as good, And I have seen players who are not as good but held to the same standards who outperform and what they would do if they didn't hold those same standards. And Coach, honestly, I'll never forget the second year y'all made it. Y'all lost to South Point by, I think, a point or two, and the video arose obviously on Facebook, and you had all your underclassmen out there, and they were watching the award ceremony. And I was reading through the comments just because, and there's a lot of flack, but at that moment is when I had the most respect for you. And I said, I could hang out with that guy. I could coach with that guy, because for the kids, it's completely perceived differently than the noise on the outside. And it's like, listen, I want to remind y'all about this moment. Like every day we hit the weight room, remember how this feels, because we don't want to feel it again. And man, that was where I was like, I got to find out who that dude is, because like I resonate with that. So that's awesome.
Hey, Coach, so my you talk about the players, you talk about their buy-in. I love the standards. I think sustaining your secret sauce to sustaining success seems like, man, we got to go right back to what built the foundation. I love that. How do you then get your staff to buy into that? And I'm sure there's probably some turnover year to year, but what do you look for and when you're building your staff to then reinforce those standards that you've established?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really important is you start over every year. I don't require a whole lot of my staff in the winter. I try to let them, really have that time off. But before we get started back in the spring, like when we meet, it's like we're all meeting for the first time. And again, going through, look, here's how we do this. Here's how we do. And I know everybody knows, because one of the things that I have been blessed with is, I've been at South Florence. I'm going into year 6. I've had the same defensive coordinator for 6 years. I've had the same offensive line coach for 6 years. I've had the same strength coach for 6 years. And so, those 3 pieces are without a doubt, the most important. And then I've had 4 or 5 other guys who have been with for all 6 years. So we're all very familiar with each other. And I remember in our staff meeting this past year, right before spring, I said, guys, I want you to know something. I know this is getting monotonous because there's not a whole lot new this year. I'm changing 1 or 2 things here or there. But it is so important that we don't let anything slip, because as the slightest giving in to something is the beginning of your downfall. And what I told our guys is, the longer we win, the longer we're good, the harder and harder and harder. There's not a point where you arrive and you plateau and it's just like, all right, we're here now. Everything's always on an incline, and as soon as you start saying, I don't feel like dealing with that today, the problem is the next day it becomes a little bit easier to give into it, and the next day and the next day, and all of a sudden you look up and you've lost it, and it's not a standard anymore. And now you got to retrain everybody, and that's incredibly detrimental. And that is, I would say I fear that, and I fear every day us slipping just a little bit. And so, I put a lot of pressure on my coaches too. Now, I'll get on them too, just like everybody else. But I try to make sure that I do a good job of always being fanatical about what we say are standards. Okay, make sure they're standards. Make sure they're as unwavering, no matter what. Coach, my mama had a flat tire and da 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 da, and I'm late, and man, that sucks. But you were late, and so you got 100 up downs.
Yep.
But they know and they understand it, I think.
And that's the big thing I was going to piggyback on, is like, having a standard is one thing, but if you're the only one that knows the standard, then how can the other guys live up to that? So it takes a big communicator, an effective communicator, to be able to communicate that with your staff, with your players, with admin. That way everybody's on the same page. That way there is no gray area. It's like, no, dude, you're late. I don't care what the reason is. And they can disagree with that all they want, but they can also go home. Like, you don't have to be a part of South Florence,
That's right.
But if you're going to be a part of our program, you're going to be held to the standard. And when everybody's on the same page, I'm sure that's going to reinforce even more buy-in. Because now everybody's treated as an equal. Coaches, players, everybody. And I think that's obviously another sustaining piece too. And then the next piece, unless Dusty, you want to jump in.
Yeah, I was just saying, and the best part about that is when the kids understand it. Because sometimes you'll have kids that see the picture And unfortunately, parents don't. Like the kid will come up and say, Coach, listen, mom's tire's flat. I know I'm late. I'm going to hit my accountability. I just wanted you to know the reason why I was late, because they understand. And then you may have mama who is like, well, this is a real excuse. Like he didn't just was late, but it's like, we understand, like we get it, the circumstance, but he also understands our level, and I think that's a huge part of it. And, but no, Coach, that's big time. Jamie, you want to go ahead with the next one?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of the last piece of this culture and sustainability, conversation is how do you manage that internal expectation versus maybe some external pressure from the community now? Like I remember, you win it, and now, man, there's like all this. All right, they should win it again, and I'm sure and not maybe even for your coaches or yourself, but how do you manage like the players and how they manage that external noise?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for me personally, to begin with, um, I want to put so much pressure on me that anything external can't even come close to what I'm feeling inside of me, right? Now, do certain things outside bother you when people say this, say that? I'm a human being too. I like to say it doesn't, but sometimes it does. But as far as expectations go, I'm going to have the highest level of expectation for myself, for my program, for everyone around me, and everybody that I'm responsible for. Now, the players, we sort of have words every year that not like I don't sit down and pick like this is our word for the year. It just sort of becomes, the word for the year. And last year, I knew, based on our schedule, who we were going to play, and early on, a lot of injuries and all that kind of stuff. I knew that things weren't going our way early, but I felt like we were still a good football team. We just had a lot of bad things going on at one time. Like, I mean, guys, we were on our sixth string running back playing against Northwestern. It was not pretty,
Suboptimal.
But what we started talking about this past year was dominate. That was sort of that became our word, and not dominate in beat somebody 42-7, but dominate the things that you totally control. Focus on the things you totally control. The things you don't, you have to find a way. The things I don't control, they bother me. If I start thinking about the things I don't control, I'm not mentally strong enough to just say, "Oh, that's okay. I can't control it. I'm not gonna let it bother me." I've got to consume myself with the things I do totally control, though. And for our players, I told them, I said, you're responsible for handling two. You got to dominate kind of two areas, and it's your mental and your physical state. Okay, you totally control what you eat, what you drink, and how much you sleep. You're responsible for that on your own time so that your body can be prepared for the workload. And then mentally, as we're getting ready for meetings, as we're getting ready to lift, as we're getting ready to practice, you totally control your effort, your attitude, and your toughness. You're in total control over that. Now, you have to focus on those things in order to do them at a high level. And that's just sort of what we start talking to our kids about. We don't get wrapped up in wins and losses and scores and all this kind of stuff. Like, we're working so hard every day to improve, and we just talk about, those small steps. And if I get to this level today, I got to start back down here. I've got to be relentless every day and work to get back here, and then work to push myself to the point of exhaustion so that I can go just a little bit more and earn the right to get better. And then I got to do it again and again and again. So I talk more about those things and try to make that kind of be their focus. I know there's noise. I know that there's rankings. I know that there's projections and all this kind of stuff. And I don't really, the time that they have to listen to me, I don't spend my time telling them to block out the noise. I spend my time trying to get them to focus on the things I want them to focus on, and not so much, hey, don't listen to this, because I feel like it draws a lot of attention to that.
Sure.
For me.
Yeah.
All psychologically, it's like, hey, don't think about an elephant, and then boom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I like the outlook on that. I've never heard it that way. And that's, Coach, that's why we love doing these podcasts, because I'm going to take what you just said and think on that and go, you know what? That actually makes a lot of sense. Repetitively saying the Belichick ignore the noise. Well, what noise you're talking about? Like what noise should we be ignoring? You know what I mean? It just puts it in
Some
your
of them
like
don't even
Jay.
know there's noise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like, oh, now they do. And it's like, oh, let me go see what this noise
I
is.
need to go
But then,
research the noise. I need to
and it's
go,
like
what
I
have they
tell
been
the
saying?
kids to ignore it, but then as soon as someone ranks us like almost last, I'm like posting in the locker room to give motivation. It's like, Coach, you're putting the noise in the locker room, you know. So it's like, Coach, how was like the middle school football around there? Your feeder programs, how involved are you kind of with that, or is it a little different? Do you have specific middle school or middle schools that come zone directly to your high school? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we're a lot messier than most of you guys in the upstate. Y'all have got it figured out, and for some reason, south of Columbia, we just cannot darn figure it out. You know, in Florence, School District 1, where you go to high school is based on where you went to elementary school, not where you go to middle school. Which, uh,
Wow.
it is what they didn't ask my opinion, so
Sure. Sure.
it was complicated. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
very
Yeah, it's probably
complicated.
complex. Yeah.
We have a middle school that, for the most part, feeds us, but a lot of those kids go somewhere else, and we get a lot of kids from the other two from two other middle schools. So it's hard. I mean, I
Yep.
go to the one. So yeah, no, it's been like this the last 2 years, but the one that used to be our, pretty much feeder is like right down the road. So I go and try to see them, once a week. We did for the first time this year start bringing our middle school players, over to the high school just to try to accelerate their. Now, look, we don't hold them to our standards yet. You know what I'm saying? We still want them to have fun playing
You
football.
got
I
1,000
don't
up
want,
downs, 12
yeah,
year
I
old.
don't want to run them all off. But just in starting to invest in them so that we have a little bit of a relationship with them. Like at least we know their face and their name, and they know our face and our name. And what's good is like they get done, and I told my coach, I said, look, we got to have a little bit of a mental shift right here. Like I don't want to run these kids off. I want to teach them, and we do want to push them and accelerate their growth. But it's a little bit more about making sure they want to play football.
Mhm.
But then they get done, and most of them go up in the bleachers, and then they see us practice, and then they say, "Oh, you know, that's what it's going to be." But we talk
Exactly.
about this is what we were building towards and stuff. So I'm gonna be honest with you, not a whole lot
Well, that's got to be tough. I mean,
That's
not,
hard.
yeah, you don't have one. So, like, for example, we came through York. It's the perfect feeder school program
Mhm.
situation. I mean, you have an intermediate school, fifth and sixth graders who can also access the weight room at the middle school. And then you have a
Oh,
middle
okay.
school, and every kid in the middle school goes to the high school. They have weightlifting classes. It's like, you don't
Yeah.
even think about like situations like yours, and even like we talked with Coach Burris, who's at Westwood now. He does the same thing. You don't know who's coming from which middle
You have
school
no
to your
idea.
school, and
yeah.
apparently, I just found out Rock Hill's a little bit like that. Like I thought
Mhm.
all the kids coming up was from Castle Heights, which is the middle school right there, but it's not. So I think it's more often than none that you don't have just one middle school. Now I'm from Georgetown, the Low Country. Georgetown
Yeah.
Middle is right next to Georgetown High, and literally
Yeah.
they walk across the street. So it's so weird that it's so hit or miss based on the district. Well, Coach, we're going to move into a fun part. The first two we talked about, no doubt your programs need it. Culture, championship program, and sustaining that. But now we're going to get into your offensive identity a little bit. Talk a little bit of X's and O's, kind of who you are, what you believe in. Obviously scoring a lot of points. And I'm a Gamecock fan, so I love
Yeah,
that.
me too.
You got the chance to coach both of the Sellers, who are now Gamecocks, and I think
Yeah.
I can speak for Gamecock Nation. They're pretty happy with him, and I was at the Clemson game this past year, and man,
Oh,
what a
Q
moment!
Buck.
What a
Q Buck
moment!
for a lot of
What
yards
a
against them
moment!
dudes.
But Coach, let's get in. What is kind of your offensive philosophy, and is it the same that it was while you were at Sumter? Has it adapted? What do you believe in as far as OC?
Yeah, number one, I want to be physical. I think that in today's world, you better be extremely talented, or you better be different. And I think now, being a very physical football team that plays with uh, two tight ends, three tight end sets. That's not normal. That's kind of like what used to be, when people used to run triple when everybody was in pro I. You know what I'm saying? And so my background is, when I was a Sunrise offensive line coach, and so that sort of Um, I love being physical and running the football. Now, we're very different every year. Now, the last 2 years, if you've watched us, we've been similar just because of, I mean, man, we had a couple, 200-pound tailbacks that could run a little bit. Our offensive line was just massive and big and strong and mean and physical. And um, but I think your offensive identity has to start with your quarterback. What can he do? What does he do well? The North did everything well, so we did a little bit of everything. I can remember meeting, and our guys would be like, well, what, we just tag Q to it and let him run it. It'd be fine. Nobody will tackle him. But um, I think you got to figure out what your quarterback does well. Does he read a defense well? Does he drop back and throw it well? Does he run it well? Does he have a big arm? Does he run it well and throw play action pass? So I think everything's got to be predicated off of what does your quarterback do well. Don't make your quarterback uncomfortable. I think you have to cater to that guy as much as possible. And I'm pretty fanatical about, like, I want him to be comfortable, and I want him to be the leader, and I want him to be in charge out there. And I want him to have a lot of confidence in everything he does, even if it's not working out, or even if, he misses a throw, whatever. Like, he knows where to go with the ball. He knows the kind of ball we want thrown. You know what I'm saying? So simplify what he has to do as much as possible. Now, our guy this year, he's going to be, in his third year. Well, I guess he started about half his sophomore year and then all of last year. So he's kind of going into being a 3-year starter. He can handle more, so we can do more. But what do I want my identity to be? I want to be able to run the football, be physical. I love playing with tight ends, probably because I was a tight end. And being just, if you chart my formations, you better have 3 whiteboards and 2 expo markers. I want to formation you to death. I want you to spend all your time trying to figure out how to line up. And then if I see you're pretty good at that, then we're going to shift, we're going to motion, we're going to huddle, we're going to play with tempo. Just to try, I want to try to displace the defense as much as I can.
What do you think your core offensive principles have been that have been kind of mainstays? Like what type of physical runs? You talk about power. Are you a power team? Do you like gap? Are you a zone guy?
We're a gap team. So I mean, primarily we're power counter and buck sweep. That's where we begin. That's sort of what we're built around, and whatever else we do is so that you can't stop those 3. Or if you sell out to stopping those 3, then we got to go do this. So that's what everything built is. I want to be physical and run gaps. I think gap RPOs are harder to defend than zone RPOs.
100%.
But we got it. RPOs and play action ain't no good if you can't run the ball now.
Yes.
So we have to do that all spring long. We're running power, running counter, running buck sweep. I don't want to hear about nothing else. That's what we're doing. And then if we get good against, then we're going to go to every defensive front you can possibly get. So it all starts for us there. RPOs off of those things, and then your play action shots. I want to make you have to put 9 in the box, create one-on-ones, and let those guys go get it. And so that's sort of where we don't do a tremendous amount in the intermediate pass game. I'm trying to get a little bit more into, get the ball at the perimeter with quick screens and stuff like that, like off of tempo. But I actually flew out to SMU this past off season just to try to study how they do things so fast, play with such tempo. And while we're nothing like them now, I mean, if you watch us play and watch them play, you think, what were you doing there? Well, I'm just trying to figure out how they go and get these screens off so fast, and because if I can add that to kind of what I have here, now all of a sudden I'm harder to defend and I'm making you defend me more east-west because usually I want to go right at you. Well, people are getting better at stopping us going right at them and graduating people, and our tailbacks don't weigh 200 pounds anymore, unfortunately. So, I think you just always got to be adapting. Like,
Sure.
I don't have a playbook. I don't have, all this kind of stuff. We just sort of kind of figure out what we're best at, and we try to go do that in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and you hit a point a minute ago, Coach. You were like, a lot of people aren't used to like the 12 and 13 personnel stuff, and it's like, the game used to be everything was so close to the ball,
Right.
and then the air raid hits, and it's the best thing since sliced bread, and you start getting away from the ball. So then I feel like defense at the high school level is always a couple years behind the offense. Well, like now the most thing you see is one back, maybe H back. So like defenses are starting to get further away from the ball. So it's like, okay, now the game's evolving. The closer we get back to the ball in offense, the more uncomfortable the defense is because you see a 3 high safety. Okay, good luck. Let's see how you play 12 personnel. Let's see how you play 13. And I think it's always kind of been like that. The offense is always steps ahead. And as soon as they get good at something, it's like, oh, let's condense it back. Let's go back to pro. Let's go back to 12 personnel. And
It's funny, Dustin. I was just thinking about this. Like, the question was going to be, the coach was like, "Hey, man, what if you don't have like 2 tight ends?" And I was thinking, wait a minute, he's the head coach. He's always going to have 2 tight ends. And I was just thinking about that. Like sometimes I'm like, we don't have 12. Well, we do. They just play defense.
That's
So
right. Them defensive ends, you can teach them how to block down. I
heck
promise.
yeah, you man. Heck yeah, you
I
can.
promise.
We did it a good bit last year, and we had our starting defensive end, our starting linebacker were our 2 tight ends, and man, that was some of our best offense. So it's good stuff,
Well, and
man.
you
Good
also
stuff.
you always have what you do and what you believe in. Like I went and talked to Dave Gutshaw one time, and he was talking about how they practice their passing game and stuff, and he's like, I got 5 quarterbacks out there. I said, how do you got 5? I mean, I know y'all a big school, but I mean, you got 5 quarterbacks that can throw it. He said, yeah, I mean, they can all throw it pretty good. I was like, man, like we got one dude that's, I mean, like I'm throwing to the twos because my other guy can't even get in.
Your
And,
running
and
back
this is what
coach is out there throwing it like
he said, well, coach, he said, we throw the ball, and when you throw the ball, you got good guys that can throw and catch it. Well, we run the ball and throw tight ends, and so you know what I'm saying. You train and you build your team according to what you want.
exactly.
You're right. Yeah,
When you're the head coach, you can establish that for sure.
Yeah, and we're a 3-man front on defense, and I will always be a 3-man front on defense because I'm not gonna have 4D linemen.
Because you're gonna have a tight end.
You're darn right. I feel like if you play a 3-man front, all you need is 5 defensive linemen. The rest of us playing tight end now. We don't have no 6, 7, 8 defensive ends. That ain't gonna
I
happen.
love that, coach. I love it.
But you go somewhere else, and 4-man front, they might have 8 defensive
Sure.
linemen and no tight
10
ends.
personnel.
So,
10 personnel with 4-man front defense.
yeah, it's all
Yeah.
it all what
Hey,
you
coach,
want.
you can
is
have
what
this
you
third
get.
string running back to be your H. Like, thanks, man. We'll appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Coach, you said it best. I think Sarkeesian talked on it a couple years ago. You run the ball. If they put too many to stop the run, you RPO the defender who you can't block. If they do that, then you start. If they try to take that away, play man, you run away from them with play action. Like it's not that simple, but it can be that simple. It's like we're going to try to run it. If they put more than we can block, we're going to read that defender. And if they play man so we can't do it, then we got to run away from them. We got to play action hard, and we got to get across the field, do some different types of routes. But, man, I love that style of offense. When me and Jamie worked together at York, pro was a big part of who we are. We didn't have 2 stud tight ends. We had a stud and maybe a little bit average kid, but we had one of the defensive ends that we shared a little bit. And when him and the stud were in, it looked really good.
Well, Dustin, you can any big game that we were in, I felt like our biggest adjustment was to go with the best 2 guys at tight end and just try to control the game, grind it out, punch that team right in the face. And it was usually a really athletic team that wanted to play 7-on-7. I feel like we've always done that the last decade.
And you
And
start
I want to
getting
live in it. I'd love to live in that world. But
you start getting in pro and you start flopping it where it's twins opposite and then you shot motion. It's like it's a nightmare, and it's like it's a nightmare.
When you see that, you think, well, let's play man. Well,
good luck.
Man gets complicated in 12 personnel. You know
You're gonna
what I mean?
go corner over when you go like tight end nub and now you got 2 flankers to one side and it's like, well, you're gonna go corner over or are you gonna go corner force to the nub side? Like, what are you gonna do? Like,
and then
you got some issues, man.
Well, it's like you'll see teams too that doesn't understand defense and they'll play man and go corner over, but they'll spill it. And it's like, who's spilling it to? Your man coverage, you can't spill it.
Yeah. Or your force player is also in man.
Yeah.
Like it's disgusting.
It is. It is.
I think we're ready for the last little bit here, Coach. We're going to get into our rapid fire segment, man. It's been a great episode so far, man. We really appreciate all the details that you've given about your culture and your program, and it ain't easy doing that. And then people say, well, you know, it's not easy to sustain that. You got to be a fanatic about your culture and your program. And man, that's probably the hardest thing to do, especially with 15, 16-year-old kids. And so, Coach, man, just hats off to you and your success. But we're excited to get in this last bit. This is our little rapid fire, kind of having fun here. But what's one thing that you wish every young head coach knew? Kind of going in, or maybe what's maybe a better way to ask that question is what do you feel like you should have, you wish you would have known kind of going into your first year as a head coach?
How to organize individual time during practice. Yeah, I think that I didn't really learn that until I worked for Mark Barnes.
Okay.
And we spent a lot of time, talking about how to be very efficient and especially, when you're coaching the offensive line, um, how to efficiently use your time during individual. I think a lot of coaches, they don't like individual anymore. Everybody just wants to do team, 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 and get away from fundamentals a lot of times, I feel like. I want to be very physical during individual because it's more controlled.
Right.
And during team times, I want to be more on bags. Let's make sure we know who we're blocking, but let's be really physical during the time we can control it. And that's something I didn't really have a very good grasp on early. I kind of did little drills to pass the time, not to improve and get better. And so I think that that's something that's not talked about a whole lot as far as like a lot of people see individual times. I just got to get through it till we get to routes on air, till we get to this, till we're working with somebody else. But like,
Mm-hmm.
if you got time by yourself with just you and your guys, like
Sure.
you have a plan. You need to know what you want to accomplish. You need to know the coaching points that you want to hit, and
Yes.
you need to develop them during that time, not just try to get through it.
Yeah.
Most recently, when I was the DC, when in Indy, I wouldn't necessarily micromanage what drills to run but we would talk about that prior. But I would put must, like in the Indy box, I'd put must, and under that I would list out when we get to group, we must be able to do these things. So, for example, if you're at DB, we must be able to align to these formations. We must be able to make the coverage call check, and we must be able to play this technique in this coverage. Like these were must. We get to group and we're not doing it, then you're telling me like we need to tell you exactly what drills to do. Never really had that, but that and I think that keeps the buy-in from assistant coaches. Well, he's not telling me what to do. He's just saying we better know how to do these things when we get to group and get to team, and had a lot of success with that.
Yeah, I think too, what I do is I build out these matrices. And so the matrix will say like, okay, and really we have these meetings with our position groups, but each position group has, all right, we want these qualities in like a receiver, and then all the receiver qualities. And then we don't just say we want those qualities. Well, how do we train those qualities of those receivers? And then what drills do we do for each one of those qualities? And then those drills build out this matrix, and I just give that to the coach. And I say, okay, I need you to work these things. And then as we see deficiencies, like maybe we need to start inputting these in, especially if you have a young coach that's not really his, own that position yet. That's a great little tool too, Dustin, too. So it's kind of the same thing. Like it's not micromanaging. You're really kind of providing a resource and support for your assistant coaches, because they're going to be held accountable for them, and you want to help them out. You don't just want to, hey man, go out there and run cones.
Individual is like you're teaching them, and then when we get to group, like that's the test, and the test is not for the players; it's for the coach. I'm fixing to find out, were you coaching? And if not,
100%.
I want to know why our players don't know what's going on. I'm not pissed at the player. I mean, he ain't screwing up on purpose.
Yep.
It's either because we're asking him to do something he can't, or he don't know. And so
we got to fix that in film or something. We got to get that
No
right.
doubt.
standards and accountability, right there is pretty. You get immediate feedback. Yep.
No doubt.
No doubt.
All right. Second one, Coach. We got 3 questions. Here's the second one. Would you say one drill either your team or offense won't go without? Do you have any team drills that you're going to do, or any offensive drills? Like, it doesn't matter. We're going to do this no matter what.
2 in particular. Our offensive line is going to do counter drill every day. Sort of a drill I developed when I was at Sumter. 1 year, I was the only offensive line coach for both our varsity and our JV team, and we didn't have a tight end H-back coach either. So I had like everybody, and had to figure out how to be efficient, use my individual time wisely, all that kind of stuff, and developed a drill to work on, trying to perfect counter. And then the other thing we're going to do every day is our quarterback and running backs. They're going to go through mesh for 10 minutes, and I mean they're going to go through it for 10 minutes in the spring, all the way to Thursday walkthrough before the state championship. Like, I don't care. I think that is something that is incredibly undercoached, and I think that if you want to be a great develop tailbacks, you got to get them in position, and the tempo of everything's got to be right. And I lose my crap more during quarterback tailback mesh than I do any other time during practice, because it's the easiest time to kind of check out, but it's also the greatest time to develop mental toughness. And, Coach, we've done this literally for, 150 days. I don't care. It better be perfect then.
Yeah,
There's no
exactly.
reason we've done it for this long. So we're going to mesh every day. That's something I learned from Mark. He would talk about, and just if you listen to him talk about the quarterback tailback mesh running power, he told you about it for 30 minutes, and you would walk away thinking you are like, I'm the stupidest human being. I did not know.
I love that.
I mean, he would be talking about, dang pinky toe on the second step. Just so precise.
I
But
love it.
our generation, we're not that precise with stuff because we don't know. But I mean, they were,
Yes.
and are, and the guys who are still in this, the old guys who are still, they all freaking win.
Sure.
Yes.
And
because they have
there
such attention to detail.
and there's three technique things within that mesh on a specific play that determines if it's a 5-yard, 15, or 55-yard run. And a lot of people don't understand that. And I know I've coached offense with Jamie, and I actually was his running back coach this year for a couple of weeks where I got moved back to defense. But it's like each run has a specific type, each gap, each zone, each play action, each 5-man, 6-man. And it's like, don't move to the balls in the quarterback's hand is the number one thing. We got to let everything develop. And it's just, and that standard.
Eyes and A back.
And people don't understand. It's like, man, you're giving the ball to the best player. Well, yeah, but he can be such an even better player if we prepare him for what he needs. But
we do it too, Coach. I'm glad, man. A lot of things that you've been saying, man. I'm like, it's kind of reaffirming things that we were doing in our program too. We do mesh. We have that's our Indy pregame. So I'll actually have our mesh period where we have 3 quarterbacks 5 yards apart in a line, and I have all 3 running backs stacked in behind. So once they get done running, they all run power, and then they just keep going up the line. I love that, even the Friday nights, man. But we've actually incorporated H's too, because I've had to coach both running backs, quarterbacks, and H backs. So we've actually incorporated that fit too, and it's been pretty good for like run reads and things. Yeah. Man, I love it, man. I think focusing on the fundamentals, it goes right back and it feeds right back into your culture principles. It's like the details matter, the standards matter. These are our non-negotiables. Well, Coach, last one. What's maybe the most misunderstood part of being a head coach? And I guess this gives you a little bit of voice to maybe some people that don't know, what it is, what it's like, being a coach and, life outside of that. What's maybe the most misunderstood part of being a head coach?
The weight of making decisions, I think for me was I was that guy who desperately wanted to be a head coach. I wanted to be a head coach so bad because I wanted to do things my way. I didn't like when I made suggestions and we didn't do what I suggested because, I'll tell you, I was a lot smarter when I was an assistant coach making suggestions. But then and again, kind of like I said with Mark, like I was about as prepared as you can be without actually having been the head coach before. But man, even with that, like the weight of making decisions for me personally, that was something that I had not thought or considered or maybe I thought I wanted. But man, I don't know if you guys have seen that thing by Kirby Smart, the cost of leadership. If you haven't, just Google it and it'll pop right up. But the one that sticks out the most to me is, you will have to make decisions that negatively impact those you care about. And And that's true, man. I mean, when you make decisions, you can make them for individuals, okay, or you can make it for what is best for us, all of us. Um, and when it does negatively impact an individual, that hurts me. I mean, I don't like that. I do it, but it doesn't make it any easier, and so even down to I mean, look at the weather. Do we need to push the game? I mean, I stress so much over stupid little stuff like that. That for me is difficult.
It's real easy to when you're a head coach, there's 10 decisions that need to be made that assistants only know about one of them. So it's a
Yeah,
lot easier as an assistant to have a great idea for that one decision, but
that's
assistants
right.
typically don't know the 9 that you had to make
Yeah.
right before that decision,
Or
so
parents too. I mean, it's like you're trying to make a scheduling decision about practice or anything, or like I really don't think that people give head coaches or really decision makers in general the benefit of the doubt that they thought
Yeah,
things through.
yeah,
And I think that's probably one of the most misunderstood thing that leaders make decisions to benefit something other than what's best for the team. And I think you hit the nail on the head on that. And that's where a lot of stress comes from. We've all been head coaches, and it's like that's why it's good to have maybe former head coaches on your staff too. Like if you can get them, because they probably
yeah.
understand that more than anybody. I mean, you'd like to
Oh,
have those guys in your room. It's like how this kind of decision can go here, and then you can kind of play it off of them and all that. But no, man, that makes a lot of sense.
Coach, this has been great, man. We really appreciate you taking time. We know it's a little late and football season's getting ready to get ramped up, and we know you probably don't have a lot of time with family, and it's getting ready to even go down more. But we appreciate you being on. Like I said, I've probably taken 10, 15 nuggets from this conversation, and
100%.
exact reason we do this, but definitely can tell first time we've ever spoken. We're very like-minded in a lot of ways, and me and Jamie might have to make a little ride down to South Florence and come chalk it up with you one day and talk through some things. But guys, before we head out, we got some links in our show notes. Check them out. Team Builder Pro Quick Draw, R4 Football Systems, 10% off with the promo code CoachSpeak. And guys, it's been great. We'll see you in the next one.
See you guys.
Thanks for tuning into the Coach Speak podcast. If you're interested in being a guest speaker on the show, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at coachspeakpodcast1@gmail.com. And if you have a question for our Q&A segment, don't forget to submit it through the form in the episode description. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.